Are there portals to other worlds, other time periods? Can we travel through space with the simple act of walking through a door? This week, Jackalopes will look at portals. I'm Floyd Whiting.
I'm Aaron Linden.
I'm Steve Sisson.
And I'm Emmy Whiting.
And we...
No fun with those today.
No one came out with something.
Red shirt Star Trek joke, but maybe later.
Maybe, yeah.
I was like trying to think of something witty. I was like, I got nothing. Nothing.
Just going with the old classic, you normies.
I know.
We are your Jackalopes. And a Stargate is a fictional device that allows for rapid travel between two distant locations within the universe. It first appeared in fiction in 1994, a film starring Kurt Russell and old James Spader. The Stargate in that film, for those of you who have not seen it, is just basically a large circular device with chevrons that can lock onto constellations, basically outlining a destination. It was a great movie.
It was a great movie.
Like it addressed pyramids and ancient Egypt and all that's a great show.
Yeah.
Plus Kurt Russell. I mean, you can't go wrong with Kurt, right?
We've never watched that before. have
Stargate?
we? Yeah.
We might not have.
No, I don't think we have.
should.
But we should.
We should do that.
Because
Should
anything
be.
with Kurt Russell, I'm all about it.
Oh man, we should do it.
Yeah.
We should watch that tonight, especially now because Stargates or gates or portals or doorways have been around for quite a while. They appear in the Bible as like stairways to heaven. A lot of fiction, have had just like a portal just appear, Star Trek, things like that. But then they started to get a little more serious because there is something called an Einstein-Rosen bridge. And this is a theory that we can't actually prove. But mathematically, according to Einstein's theory, there could be wormholes all over the universe and where we don't know. A wormhole is basically when space folds over on top of itself so that you can simply travel through a tunnel from one point to the other. It's in like a very short distance.
Do you have a diagram?
Almost instantaneously.
Almost instantaneously. There's actually a lot of diagrams online. I'll see if we can't get one found to kind of illustrate this because it is pretty odd. It's basically if this was space as we know it, it can fold in on itself and then basically just create a little hole between the gap. And you could just jump from one area of space to another area of space. And a lot of theories have come forward lately about UFOs, about how this is how they're getting from point A to point B, that they're not actually traveling at sublight. Because, the distances in space, we've talked about it on this show. When you look up at the stars, you're looking at, really old information.
Mm-hmm.
The light coming from the stars is billions, sometimes hundreds of billions of years old. And so that distance is just too vast for anything to be able to travel. In all of fiction, they had to come up with answers for this. So we got warp speed,
right.
And what do they call it in Star Wars? Light speed or something like that. So
yeah, hyperspace.
Yeah. There you go.
Plaid.
Yeah. So this is actually the idea of a wormhole is much more viable, much more believable, especially since they can actually kind of mathematically be proven to exist. We just can't find one.
Also, I don't do math, so
Right.
Yeah.
wouldn't understand it to begin with.
But it would be fascinating if a society developed technology that had the ability to actually open up the frame, whatever that is, of space-time and be able to travel from point A to point B. Some people have theorized that we've been able to do this for years. But we don't use this as a means of travel on Earth because it would destroy the oil industry. Every form of travel outside of just simply portaling there would disappear. Whether that's true or not, I highly doubt it. It just seems like it would be very difficult to accomplish. But Project Looking Glass is a conspiracy theory that is a mix. And once I really started looking into this, there's the Y-Files did something on this months ago. If you like that show, check it out. He did a great deep dive just into this theory. It's kind of a collection of other theories thrown into one, which usually I find to be really fun, because then you can go, but what about this? And so said that, and so said this. And you can start kind of connecting your own dots. This one has got a lot of gray area around it.
What?
Yeah. So it's kind of a collection of stories from Bob Lazar, Bill Wood, and mostly a man by the name of Dan Bursch. Conspiracy theories actually revolve around an alien crash outside of Kingman, Arizona in 1953, when we ended up actually getting a live alien from that crash to come back to Area 51, S4, whatever you want to call it, and have him help us reverse engineer all these other alien crashes that we had started to accumulate through the years, starting with the Roswell incident. Now, supposedly, one of the pieces of equipment that was recovered is this device that I'm not sure if it's a navigational device or if it's an actual device that is used for what we have decided to use it for as human beings. It's called the Looking Glass. It falls under Project Looking Glass, which was one of the main projects that Bob Lazar spoke about when he came forward. He said, there was a couple different projects going on that dealt with different parts of the UFOs that we were reverse engineering. One of those was Looking Glass, and I people can double check me, but I do believe that is the idea of the navigational system. How the hell did they navigate through space, possibly time, to get here? Well, this device, through some reverse engineering, through the help of J-Rod, we have learned if you take someone with heightened psychic-like abilities, and we're breaking into an area using words that Floyd doesn't like to use, I've got real issues with the whole psychic thing. It's hard to buy. But supposedly, when you involve an individual with heightened psychic abilities to sit in this device and then use old Sumerian tablet, what are they called? They're
Galaxy?
Cylinders. No, cylinders. They were cylinders, okay? The Sumerians, to mass produce information or to make a contract, you got a cylinder in Suma. This cylinder was hand carved with things that identified you or told a story. You could lay out the clay and then just roll the cylinder over top of it, and it produced a clay tablet that was basically a document back in the day. You could
original printing press,
exactly. You could mass produce information and get it out there. So supposedly the U.S. government started going around and gathering as many of these Sumerian cylinders as possible. I'm not sure why those would influence anything, but apparently they are part of the conspiracy theory, and they help to navigate the machine somehow. The psychic sits in the machine. These cylinders are added to the machine somehow, and once it starts to generate power, because it looks a lot like what do they call that, Steve? Where a gimbal? It's not a gimbal. Gyroscope. So this thing apparently looks like a gyroscope, and all these rings spin around it, right?
Like a Dyson sphere.
Right, yeah, in a way, sure. And the individual sits in the center. And then what happens is a gray ball, an orb-like thing, begins to form. This is the looking glass. If the psychic in the chair has gone through certain techniques, they can, in a way, navigate where they want that looking glass to look in all of time.
That's cool.
So that they have a way to look not only into the past, but into the future. What is this actually doing? Supposedly, it's ripping a hole in space-time that we can look through.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I brought this in on a show where we're talking about stargates and portals is, what if it was part of the navigational system? New information brought forward to Congress by recent whistleblowers kind of addresses the fact that the Greys aren't necessarily from another planet, that they're from here. Well, what if they're us from way in the future? This theory says just that. This theory says that the Greys are us 54,000 years from now. That in December of 2012, an event occurred that actually ended the world as we know it. Things that we were doing here, mainly using the device for Project Looking Glass, caused a solar disruption. This disruption caused a magnetic disruption in the Earth, thus causing the Earth's axis to tilt by only 5 degrees. All of this information, by the way, we are learning supposedly from J-Rod, the recovered alien, who basically said, "Hey, it's just I'm your predecessor. This is what happened to humanity."
As long as I don't end up looking like Chisel Hand,
Right?
I'm good.
So the Earth shifted, as Aaron is always
Oh, pole
saying.
shift, love it.
The pole shifts, and the Earth as we know it ends. Survivors go underground. Over time, because of the technology that they start to develop, we start to change the way that we look and survive. So having a smaller frame with larger eyes is better underground. Our brains are then genetically modified to gain intelligence, and we essentially found this great society, but we are the Greys. That being said, somewhere there's a break, because J-Rod was from Zeta Reticula. Now, those in the UFO community know that Zeta Reticula is a binary star system that is very far away. What is it, like 30 some million light years or something from
like
Earth? Maybe even closer. You'll have to double check. But anyway, it first appeared in the literature of the UFO community from the Hills, who were famously abducted by aliens. One of the first mainstream, holy cow, they came, they took us, we went up in the ship, and they brought us home. Well, Betty Hill could not figure out why, but she had a star map in her head. She was able to draw it out. She said, this is where they said they were from. That is a perfect map of the Beta Resiculus system. She was not in any field that would actually, privy her to that type of information, but she could do it. That's one of the things where I'm like,
Maybe originally.
She seems
way back in the day.
Yeah.
And then fast forward and we're underground.
Well, and the other thing, the break for me is, this seems like I said in the beginning, this is a collection of a bunch of stories that quite possibly this individual, this Bursch character, sat down and just said, I'll connect the dots in all of this. Because Bob Lazar, in his tapes, when he came forward and said, the aliens, have told us that this is where they're from, he said the exact same thing. Beta Reticulus system. This is where they're from. So supposedly this is where J-Rod was from. J-Rod comes down. He says, okay, we came back in time just before the big event that changed who we are, to take some of your DNA because we need it to save our species. Supposedly a genetic disease has taken hold in the Greys, and they are dying as a species. And so they're like, all right, we need some of the original blueprint to help us cure this and save the species. So they had figured out how to travel back in time to Earth, and that's what we're picking up. They're not UFOs traveling great distances. They're UFOs traveling through time. And this looking glass device, he saw it, and he's like, I will teach you how to use that better. And so we did. But then he said it is also what causes the event. When you guys got a hold of this thing and started playing with it, you didn't realize that you are ripping holes in space-time, and it's affecting the sun.
CERN.
That now this is going to affect you, which leads to my creation. So somehow, and for some reason, J-Rod said, turn it off. From this point to that point, don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently the government was like, we have no reason not to believe you, switched it off. And by doing so, we prevented the 2012 world-ending event. And now we are in uncharted territory.
That's why it's all so wild right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mandela effect
Yeah.
started about when? When did people start seeing these different things? When did people really start? And I can also say, when did the internet start blowing up
Right.
about this kind of stuff, right? So again, we're going to take this line and we're going to pin this way over here because it's going to fill in a big gap, right?
Yep.
So now by preventing the event, we actually prevent the dawn of his species. But wait, there's more.
Always.
There's
Mr.
another
Popeil.
branch of his species. Well, we can even maybe call it a faction, who were like, no. You don't get to go back in time and just stop everything from happening. So supposedly this other branch has come back and teamed up with the Illuminati.
Oh, so it's got to be the reptilians, right? Come on.
Teamed up with the Illuminati to make the event happen. But because they stopped the big celestial event from happening, they've got to do it the old-fashioned way. Let's start a war. And so they're trying to create as much divisiveness and hatred within our own global community.
Okay, this sounds more and more real as we go on.
to start World War III and end it so that they can be created. And thus, that timeline can go forward. They think that they're going to be able to fix this. Now, there's been a lot of bunkers being built,
Oh, man.
right?
Yeah.
Because those in power know,
The Illuminati.
the Illuminati and the Majestic 12 know this is going to happen. That their influence and these other, descendants of ours who have traveled back through time are going to make this happen. And so they're going to hide out in their bunkers while it all takes place. And where's their headquarters? DIA.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, love it more and more as we go in.
I watched you just go through a metaphysical event. Yeah. So DIA.
That's one way to put it.
DIA is the HQ for when all of this starts to take place, that they're all going to gather there and thus start the transition from what we are to what the Greys are.
This is fantastic.
So,
And 99.9% plausible.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
but, so right now, folks, in the world are two factions. There's those who want that timeline, the World War III, to go forward. And there's those who are fighting against them, that are trying to prevent this from happening. According to sources, all of this is going to come to a head in 2030, when it will finally be decided which timeline we go down. Is the world going to end, or do we enter a new age of enlightenment when supposedly, because of the help of J-Rod and other Greys who don't want this to happen, we'll finally be able to teach us telepathy. And once telepathy starts to actually be learned by the human species, nobody gets to keep secrets.
Oh,
Everything,
God.
yeah.
Oh, God.
Which side are you going to be on?
At that point, once that's when the age of enlightenment comes out, because all of a sudden now all of us will be linked together, and we will, like the Greys are.
Right.
And that's the dawn of the enlightenment of man. You can't keep secrets from each other. You suddenly realize that we're all one thing, and that we all go forward together. 2030.
Sounds kind of culty, doesn't it?
Wow.
You know what? See, and that's another thing. We were recently engaged. Well, I was in a storyline where it was.
I
a video
listened.
Game. She listens. It's great. Somebody, the villain, quote unquote, of this storyline, basically said, "I'm going to usher in 1,000 years of compassion."
This is for all the Elden Ring nerds. Yeah.
But you don't have a choice in the matter. Like, I'll tell you what to do. You'll do it. You'll be like a robot. But don't worry. There'll be no war. There'll be no strife. There'll be no misery. There'll be no suffering. But you won't have free will. That sounds like hell to me.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to look at certain situations like this where they're like, with this age of enlightenment in 2030,
right,
where we all become one. Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, think about
I don't want to be one.
like the birthday present just goes out the window then. Like everybody
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah.
There's no
Imagine
point in-
living a life without surprise.
Yeah. That would
Seriously.
be very fun.
It would suck.
Yeah.
Somebody once told me, I'd love to be able to read people's minds, like, because we used to sit around and talk about what would your X-Men power be, and someone's like, "I'd love to read people's minds." No, you wouldn't. You really wouldn't. It would be absolute hell. It would be horrible.
When I was a kid, I used to always think, "Oh my gosh, someone in this room can read my mind. Think only good thoughts. Only good thoughts." And then it'd go like to something real bad, and I'm like,
Yeah.
looking
And then
around. Who heard it?
They're doing that.
They know.
He's thinking only good thoughts on purpose. He's saying, think only good thoughts.
The brick wall. Picture a brick
Clearly.
wall.
Clearly, she's hiding something.
So I brought this story in, this conspiracy theory, because I often wondered, like, because Project Looking Glass, Bob Lazar, by the way, who I believe his stories. I don't believe this one. Hate to say it, but I don't buy it. Bob Lazar was like, don't believe this. This guy's pasted together a bunch of stuff that makes no sense. So even Bob Lazar, who's usually quite, he walks away from these types of things, was like, don't believe this one. But Bob did say there is a project called Project Looking Glass, and it does deal with the ability to look at a projector that they found on this thing at something. I don't think he ever said if they were looking into the past or the future or what, but it does deal with something that they found that may be based on navigation. So my theory was, what if this thing is actually opening a door to the fourth dimension?
Mm-hmm.
What if these are interdimensional creatures who come to the third dimension to just observe us, to just be like, what's it like? Same way that you and I look at things on paper. And this device is simply a portal. It's their device to get them from here to there. But we have manipulated it to look into the fourth dimension, i.e., some theorists believe the fourth dimension is time, so that we can choose when we see what event, and thus help us guide all of mankind in that direction. Who knows? And
I like
before I get off of the subject and hand it over, supposedly the Vatican has one of these devices as well.
It's always something.
I was wondering if
There's
you were going to
always
bring that
the
up.
something in there.
chronovisor,
Yep,
right?
the chronovisor.
Now, the chronovisor is said to be a device that actually gives the user the ability to see through time. Through the existence of the chronovisor, it's never been proven. It's one of those situations where it's like everyone denies it except for like just a small handful of people. But according to a book published in 2002, it was developed by Father, and don't slaughter me for not pronouncing this right, Pellegrino Arinetti. And he was a monk. And he allegedly kept the device secret until the early 1960s, when he actually revealed it to another priest by the name of Francois Brune. Now, supposedly Arinetti developed this with the help of 12 other scientists. So it's not like something he just threw together, in the diocese garage and was like, check it out. Supposedly this was the intent, that he and these 12 scientists came together to build this device so that he could prove events of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was going for. That's what he wanted to do. And one of those scientists that was named Werner von Braun. And for those who don't know who he was, Werner was a Nazi scientist who became one of the individuals that we brought over thanks to Operation Paperclip.
Right.
Where we took a bunch of Nazi scientists, brought them over to the United States,
Stole all their paper clips.
and basically said, if you help us develop rockets, you can hang out. And we'll Dominus Omus forgive everything. That isn't a conspiracy theory. That happened. Von Braun helped us get to the moon. So this thing supposedly, though, was made like of cathode rays, antenna, and metals that receive sound and light signals on all wavelengths. And it allowed the team of scientists to document events of the past, to include the crucifixion of Christ.
Of which there were photos. Supposedly.
They say. Which I think have actually been disproven.
They have.
Okay.
But
yeah,
they look good at the time.
So I know it's not a Stargate or a portal, but if we had a portal to the fourth dimension, I think that's how.
But the theory on that one that I really liked is that sound waves and light waves never go away. Mm-hmm. It's just pinpointing where on those the timeline falls, and then you can basically, this machine can recreate that out of those sound waves and light waves.
And Steve and I were having a conversation before this, and it was something that Emmy and I were talking about too. Living in the third dimension, we can't conceive the fourth. We can't
the comprehension of
we
a
just
fourth
can't do
dimension.
It. Yeah.
It's like we can make diagrams and make
the
things,
Tesseract.
make things to help us comprehend it. But in all reality, if we saw it, who knows if our brains could even process the information?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, you think about somebody living on a two-dimensional surface like a piece of paper, and a 3D sphere moves through that paper. It would look like a circle that just grows and shrinks.
Yep.
It wouldn't even look like a sphere. They have no idea what a sphere is and can't comprehend it from their reality. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So we're in that same position with the fourth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so fascinating, though, because, it's just a theory that time is the fourth dimension, because we can't conceive what the fourth dimension would be otherwise. But it's the idea of like being able to stand in one spot and see all of time at once.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I don't think the human brain could even process that. We were talking about like 12 Monkeys, where it's a fantastic movie about a man who travels through time, but his brain can't handle it. So he ends up in an asylum, and everyone's saying, well, you're just crazy. And he's like, shit, man, maybe I am, like maybe I am. because you wouldn't know.
Right.
So I think the human brain wouldn't have that capability. And again, you start telling me about psychics and stuff. I've never, ever seen any kind of solid evidence that psychics exist. It's all somebody walking into a room basically saying, I feel this. Look, I know empaths. They exist. People can feel vibes.
Energy. Yeah.
That I get. All right. I would buy that. But being able to like read someone's mind or remote view, even though the CIA's actually got documents
Oh, yeah.
on that's a real thing. We should do the show on that. But I just don't buy it. So, but what did you find?
Oh, goodness. I can't wait. Okay. So I went in a little bit of a different direction for portals, and that's the little urban legend of the 7 gates of hell in York County, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Of all places.
I like it.
I mean, where a better place, I guess.
honestly.
I mean, why not?
And the portal to hell's in Pennsylvania.
I mean, it's Detroit or Pennsylvania. It had to be one of those two.
One of those places.
Oh, what's that one? Hey, I'm from Delaware. Wayne's World. So
Yes,
good.
we're in Delaware.
Yeah, Delaware can't even claim that. You guys got the portal to hell? Pennsylvania.
Yeah, sorry.
So the 7 gates of hell in York County, Pennsylvania, is 7 gates of hell. So if you pass through all 7, you are in hell. You go to hell.
Does it ever describe anything like if I were to just go through gate number 1?
So you have to pass through all 7, and no one has ever passed the 5th gate.
What do the people who pass through the first 4 feel? Do they report anything?
Nope, I have no. To be honest, it's more of an urban legend than it is a
I think
conspiracy
we should
theory.
go.
But
Just give it a shot.
Right.
Field trip.
Well,
Right.
You never know what's on the other side.
so it says gate 1 is always visible throughout any time of the day,
Okay.
but the other 6 gates are only visible at night.
Okay. Is there like a centralized location to this? Like, can people just go and visit it, see it for themselves?
Oh yeah.
Is there a t-shirt shop?
Honestly, there's probably something over there because it's.
I survived the first gate.
So we'll get to what it actually is, like, what people are talking about more so, but I got to get through the fun parts first
Okay.
before we get to the bummer. So, there are 2 versions of the myth. And the first one is that there was a mental institution located on either Trout Run Road or Toad Road in Hellam Township in Pennsylvania. In the 1900s, a fire broke out, and the firefighters, because it's a pretty remote location, couldn't make it in time to save it. Many patients burnt to death, and other escapees were beaten to death. Because you know how insane asylums were, back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah.
So the theory is that the gates were erected by a local search party to trap the remaining escapees.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so they're just going to send them to hell. That's...
Yep.
I mean, why not? They were practically there anyway.
I'm glad we have hospitals now.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad the mental health issues really come to the forefront in the last couple decades, and I really appreciate the workers who've done that.
So the second theory here is an eccentric physician who lived on the property built several gates along a path into the deep forest. So he built the gates to hell because he was nutso, basically.
Okay.
Yes.
Any documentation on how it can like, could you imagine you're driving up to your buddy's house, he's out there with the bandsaw, you're like, what you doing, Jerry? Gate to hell.
7 of them.
You want to jump in on my number 4 already?
When you think of the gates of hell, you probably think cast iron,
Yes.
You're right.
bars.
Brimstone.
No.
Yeah.
It is just a gate that looks like a private property fence.
Really?
And that is gate 1, apparently.
Well, it's more unassuming that way.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe hell's trying to capture them damn curious kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My ball went in there.
But I
Comes back, his hair's all wild. Where you been? Don't know.
First gate, man.
Don't say it. I don't want to go.
they don't come back after.
Oh, well, you didn't say that. So
Well, they don't come back after. You're going into hell. People don't just come out of
And
the
you're
gates of
just stuck
hell.
there?
Haven't you watched Little Nicky?
What if I tie a rope around my waist?
Oh,
The poltergeist move.
yeah.
We could do that. I'll
Well,
drag you out.
yeah.
bro.
There we go.
Like when you hear
Let's go to
3 sharp
Pennsylvania.
tugs.
Let's go to
I
Pennsylvania.
played enough Diablo. I know what I'm doing.
You got the
So-
rope, and all of a sudden it just goes limp, and you're like,
I just
God,
couldn't.
who's next?
I just couldn't tell you how disappointed I was in the photos. I was like, this
Really?
is
You were
supposed
real-
to be
yeah, like, where are the
gates
demons?
of hell? What is this?
It's got some little
Where's the
wonky
spouts
latch on
of
it.
blood?
Yeah, but
that-
that was just
Where's the spice?
That was just a photo of the first one.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
What's number 5 look like?
Yeah.
So
I
they're saying
I
that
wanna
anybody who passes through this gate just vanishes then?
Yes. But nobody ever has gone through gate 7 from what people understand. But at the same time, if it's just a missing person,
Yeah.
who knows
Well, yeah, how would
if
you
someone
know?
did go into the 7th gate.
Aaron, we could do this.
Yeah, we could do this.
I could walk through this. I think I'd be all
Skip
right.
through the gates.
Yeah.
Can you jump over it?
So there used to be
Oh.
a road named Toad Road where they're talking about, but it was actually wiped off the map after Hurricane Agnes in 1972.
Mm.
So there's no longer a Toad Road there, which is a hilarious name for a road, and I wish I lived on it.
Toad Road.
Oh, little witch living on Toad Road. I love
That'd be
it.
great.
I love it. So there are multiple gates on the property, but, it's all privately owned. It's all got the signs up. It's in like a heavily wooded area.
Hmm.
And there actually was a doctor that lived along Toad Road,
Okay.
which is my favorite part. So his name was Dr. Harold Belknap, a practitioner at Westside Sanitarium.
Oh, nice.
Yes. But the reports say that he was actually very kind-hearted, not a weirdo like the theories
uh-huh.
The
That's
man
how
was
they- that's how they
probably
get
a
you in.
saint
Yeah.
Yes.
on the surface.
Yeah, right.
Always
But
the quiet
then-
ones you gotta watch.
He would actually make threatening signs for any trespassers that were like into the legend of it all,
Mm.
and they were all toad-related humor
Oh,
Ah.
nice.
written on them.
Nice.
Sounds like he's probably some innocent little old man who just happens to live in a bad area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But the toad-related humor that he would write on these signs was actually said to have named the road. So
Okay.
Toad Road.
Oh, so that's why people
Nice.
call
Yeah.
it Toad
Gotcha.
Road.
Yep.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's the little theory in Pennsylvania of all places. I
Cool.
just find
No
that so
gate to
funny.
hell.
Yeah, the property listing. It's a nice little, first time home, except for the gate to hell. Other than
Yeah.
that, it's fine.
Oh my god!
No, it's an amenity.
Yeah, that's right.
I might
Instead
live
of like
there.
a koi pond.
I
Yeah,
think I
just-
think I'd live there. What's
If your
the
guests
value
overstay,
of
they're
it?
welcome. You just kind of, why don't you go check out what's up back there?
Yeah.
You guys want to walk through
You
a
got to
gate?
go through all 7 gates out there.
You guys
Make
have been
sure.
here about a week now. Why don't you take a stroll down this path?
I just can't. I seriously, the disappointment in me though when I saw the pictures,
Yeah.
is such a bummer. I'll send Grant one so he can put it in. But
I
it's
really
just
wanna
such
go.
a bummer.
Yeah.
And I imagine, when it comes to that kind of thing, you get all these individuals who end up stopping by, and I imagine some of them are probably pretty odd. And so I more than likely would do just like what that landowner did and just put up a fence and put a sign out that says, "There's no gate to hell here. Go home.
There's
Stay off
only
my
toads."
land." Yeah.
See, now you tell me there's no gate to hell here.
Yeah.
That's exactly where it is.
Like, that's just what they want you to believe.
Right.
Yep.
The people who bought the Amityville horror house, those poor folks.
The Poltergeist house is for sale right now.
Is it really?
Yeah, in California.
Man, those poor people.
Also, that one house in New Orleans is for sale right now too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which is like bad vibes. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, thank you.
How I don't know the.
Oh, it's God, what was her name?
I can't
Lou something or other, but it's basically like where slaves were like killed and tortured.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, just
You
they
don't
call
want
it the
that.
Hell House.
Yeah.
If
for a
you've ever
reason.
heard of the Hell House, yeah.
Not as fun as the Hell Gate.
Yes.
All 7. And
All
why
7 of them.
Why is it always so,
Well, there's 7 levels of heaven, right? So
Isn't there
because you're 7th heaven, right? I mean, there's that whole thing.
Isn't it 7 horsemen of the apocalypse?
No,
it's
4.
4.
Oh, it's
4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
4
Sorry.
horsemen and 3 in reserve.
Grant's over there giving me the eye.
It was the Magnificent 7, the 7 samurai.
That is an amazing movie.
Yeah.
Oh, lucky number 7, 7 gates of hell.
Well, 7's like a sacred number.
Well, it's
so.
because if you had 666 gates, it would just take too long to get through.
Right.
Just
But
cut
why
it down
not
to
just
7.
6 then?
Not fun.
6 would
Yeah.
make more sense.
Yeah. With a couple 6s on them, but they can't even etch something into some wrought iron.
Yeah.
Like,
Come
come
on,
on.
Costco gate with a wonky lad.
If I owned that property, I can't tell you.
Get it open.
Anyone got the key? We left it back at the house.
Damn it.
Back in the car.
Does it still work if you jump over?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. If you go
No.
around it,
No.
You've
it's
got to
gotta
actually probably
be-
pass through it.
Yeah. But
All right.
fly a drone in there.
I would definitely play on that if I lived there.
Yeah,
I'd be
why
putting up
wouldn't you?
these giant gates. Just
I'd sell tickets.
Fantastical.
Tour it, man.
Decoys.
Come on
Yeah.
in. If you're brave enough,
The
Yeah.
7
Yeah.
gates.
Welcome to Floyd's T-shirt Emporium and 7th Gate to Hell. I've got button shot glasses and keychains. Come on down. Little demons. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I could make some money out of it. We could
Made
make
in
some
China written under
money.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, just as cheap as you could get. Hell, we'd get Bigfoot in there somehow. Most places try.
He's going into the 7th gate.
He just thumbs up.
Just looking back.
the iconic pose. Yeah.
Oh, that could be a fun little shop.
I'm telling you, yeah.
Good place to retire. Pennsylvania's not a bad state. All right, buddy, what do you got?
Oh, man. So I've got 5 pages. So I'm going to try and make this go a little quickly. But 1928. British Army Colonel Reginald Blumenthal discovered something amazing in the Sudan. They were down in a tunnel, and they discovered a ring with strange writing all the way around it and odd symbols. Blumenthal and one other person out of a team of 8 men on an expedition down into this cavern walked through the ring. Upon passing through the ring, they stepped into what Blumenthal said was a large sphere because he had no other way of describing this thing. He said it was like walking into another dimension or into another world. The ring was about 25 feet in diameter. Dumbfounded at how they could get from an enclosed cave into a whole open expanse, him and this guy were like, what is this? Where are we? So, in this expanse, Blumenthal later wrote in his diary that he saw a vast expanse of large, open, green pastures, beautiful river, which he assumed to be the Nile, and he described the landscape and the goings-ons as almost like watching a movie. He saw people building the pyramids. He said he and his team member were in there observing this activity for what he felt like was about an hour. Upon returning back through this portal, they discovered that they had been gone for 3 days.
Whoa.
Holy cow. Okay.
I
So
love
they
that
get back
kind of
into the
stuff.
tunnel. Everybody else is gone. The 6 remaining crew had left the scene and they ditched out because they were so scared. They actually went back up to the surface to see if Blumenthal and this other guy found another way out of this tunnel.
Like they'd
through
just
this
gone
ring.
through a tunnel, right?
Right.
Okay.
So,
And they just
How many
disappeared.
people were there?
So there were 8 total, but Blumenthal and one other guy went in. So
Got
the
it.
other 6 went back to the encampment. So they didn't know what to do. So Blumenthal and his assistant return, and Blumenthal tells the rest of these folks about this new world that they had discovered. So he talked about how he saw the pyramids being built, the tunnel systems within the pyramids, and where they are located, everything. He goes on to say that he also saw these strange-looking beings that were not from the earth. The entire group then went back into town, gathered more supplies so that they could go back to the encampment for a second and longer expedition into what we would call the Stargate.
All right.
So this time they brought more people with them to the encampment, including some local folk. When explaining to the locals through an interpreter what they had found, none of the locals wanted anything to do with going near this ring. They seemed
I'm with them.
yeah, they seemed aware of what the legends were of the area, and they would not even go near the tunnel. So Blumenthal, despite all these locals' reactions, had no issue going back in. He'd already been there, so to him it was no big deal. This time, the colonel took a different person with him so that they could see what the others saw and corroborate the story. They took enough supplies for a week. So they go into the ring, but this time they're much closer to where the pyramids were being built. Now they see these strange things in the sky. Huge craft flying around, levitating and moving huge stones. And he cannot understand at all what was happening because although there were single-engine aircraft at the time, these were large disc objects that were just floating. So he again describes the tunnels under the pyramid, the flying craft, vast amounts of people working in various locations. He then goes on to say that he saw a vast conveyor belt that was transporting bodies into these tunnels. They were there for about a week, he estimated, and he documented all of this in his diary while they were there. So when he came out, he had a fantastic story to tell. Oddly, though, this time, when they came back out, they were only gone for a week, not the 3 times time slip that had happened before. So eventually he goes back to the UK, and he tells his story to a society of renowned explorers. None of them believe him. Even though he had 2 different witnesses from the 2 different expeditions in there, they said that they were all nuts. They go on to try and find the entrance again in 1940. He tells his story to an American Army officer who says, I want to see this.
Yeah.
I'll fund it. I'll get the resources. Let's go. So they go. They have an incredibly difficult time finding this place again because sandstorms, whatever. Eventually, they find it, and they go in. And they go through this giant stone ring again. But now things are much different. The pyramids are built. They're completed. But the strange things are still flying in the skies. This time, they decide to travel around the area, which Blumenthal had not previously done. He had just basically stayed in one encampment and documented what was going on.
Stay close to the portal,
To the
right?
portal.
Yeah.
Correct. So they go down by the water and they encounter people that they actually interact with. The Stargate people were scared, terrified. They finally captured a young boy, 12-year-old boy, and calmed him and ultimately brought him back to the Stargate portal.
Abduction.
Yeah, don't do that.
Serious
Don't make
alien
it
abduction.
weird.
It is an alien abduction, right?
It is,
they're coming from
totally,
a different
man.
place. They're taking somebody, they bring him in. So as I come through the ring, the boy instantaneously ages like 60 years. So they are absolutely horrified. So they send the boy back in. They didn't follow him in to see if he, regained his normal age. But at that point, then Blumenthal now refers to this as the Devil's Ring. Although they wanted to stay longer, they couldn't because the war broke out.
Yeah.
And we could get into the whole, there's a lot of theories about archaeological sites that they were just about to make big discoveries on, and then a war breaks out.
Yep.
How
I
convenient.
just really love how they're just like, oh shit, we fucked up, and then they send him back
Put him
back.
in. Like,
Kick the kid back in there.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
We don't care anymore. We don't want to know. We
And
don't
then
want to
the
know.
kid wanders and he's like, you wouldn't believe what I saw.
Exactly.
You're
Like, they don't even
crazy.
know if, did he de-age? Was it painful?
Yeah.
Did his hair grow? Fingernails?
knows?
Did his ears get big? What about the nose? That never actually stops growing. What the hell happened?
Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe they just traded out an old guy when they were coming through. But so if you fast forward a bit, at this point, Blumenthal's passed away, but the American goes to work at the Pentagon, and he tells this story to a bunch of the higher-ups, brassy brass, and they put together that these craft that he saw sound a lot like what some of these guys witnessed in Roswell.
Yeah.
So they end up going back to this region, and it's under the operation of Nile Dawn, and they actually find artifacts. The artifacts were figurines that were not Egyptian, as they were carved to have big heads or space helmets, and they were not human-looking figurines. They were much taller with bigger heads. They never again discovered the Stargate. Wink. Yeah, sure they didn't. And in the 1960s, the CIA sent another expedition that found miles and miles of tunnels where they discovered what looked like and what we now know as an old brick phone. So it was this big brick-looking thing, but it had an antenna sticking out of it. They didn't know what it was, so it made the rounds through many military labs, and actually one of them got it to turn on, meaning that it had a power source. It is now currently hypothesized to be at Area 51. The tunnel system underneath the Giza area connected at least 60 some of the pyramids. There were found over 3,000 urns of rice and honey, and the honey to this day is still viable.
Yeah.
And they're still running tests on it. And you can find articles on that. One of the tunnel systems under Giza was perfectly constructed with over 100 miles of tunnels with hundreds of chambers and antechambers up to 700 to 800 feet below the pyramids. This is where they found an extraterrestrial craft that they could not figure out how it got in there, because the tunnel system, although it's constructed incredibly well, this object's too big to have
Couldn't fit in there.
in there. This thing had over a 10-foot diameter. It was an oval-shaped spacecraft that they could go into, and they photographed, but they couldn't get it out of there, meaning it's still there. The CIA's conclusion was that extraterrestrials certainly assisted in the building of the pyramids and the tunnels, because the Egyptians simply lacked the technology to accomplish these feats. Further investigation found that the Egyptian pyramids sit aligning on the ley lines of the earth with the pyramids in Mexico, which they hypothesize were all built by the same alien civilization.
Yeah.
So you get this guy in the middle of the Sudan and in wherever, finds a big stone ring, walks through it, and is instantaneously in the time frame of which they were building the pyramids.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I would wonder why that time frame. You know, whenever anyone travels through time, you always wonder, how do you pick a specific date?
Well, and maybe it's whatever those hieroglyphs or shapes and symbols are carved into the ring. Maybe you look at it if you knew, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, ancient Egypt. Yeah, this one.
It's
Right.
where this one's set.
Right.
And they just left it set to that time.
Yeah, because every time he went back, it
But
was
my
the same
favorite
spot
thing
and everything.
about all of this is, who funded Project Looking Glass? We did. Who funded Nile Dawn? We did. If there's nothing to these conspiracy theories, why are we spending so much money looking into these conspiracy theories?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you also must have found something at least once to make you want to go again.
Right.
Yeah.
To fund all that
Yeah.
and to get that manpower put together. It's not an easy thing.
Mm-mm.
Expeditions, I mean, God, it was like, you know, back in the day, it's how kings and queens showed their power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, you funded expeditions to explore the unknown.
Mhm.
Yep.
And only rich countries could do it. So I imagine those things have only gotten more expensive. So
Yes.
but
Inflation.
so Steve, when we look at portals, when we look at stargates, what's the reality to it all?
I think science fact ends at black holes. I mean, that's as far as we've proven something to exist. And so anything beyond that, where like if you have a black hole that travels to another black hole and you connect the two of them, and that's a wormhole. That's all theory, which is possible, but not proven.
Mhm.
Any other type of wormhole is also just possible, but not proven. I mean, mathematically, it kind of makes sense, but I think there's some issues with. I don't think we've ever talked about this when it comes to time travel, but it's the same kind of problem with a Stargate or anything like that. There's a couple big problems with them. One is that whatever velocity you're traveling at, that the Stargate, say it's on Earth and it's moving at wherever Earth is moving, your destination is almost certainly traveling in a different direction at a different velocity, and so you have to match that matter transfer somehow. Also, just fact that how do you transfer matter through it? If it's like a Star Trek thing where it rips you to little pieces and puts you back together at the other end, how do you get matter to transfer through it? Time travel has that same problem. Like if I want to travel 6 months into the future right here, when I arrive 6 months from now, here isn't here anymore.
Yeah.
The Earth's on the other side of the sun. The whole solar system is moved. I could be out in the middle of space, not even see Earth.
Our galaxy's just blasting through space. I mean, it's all moving.
Yeah, and so a Stargate would have a similar problem to that because the two Stargates are moving at their own independent velocities and directions. The other problem is you've got to build the other Stargate. So how do you get the materials there? Before you can use the Stargate, you've got to build both ends of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do you get the second Stargate built? You've got to travel there through conventional means or some other way. And then you can use the high-speed bypass highway. So
imagine you wait your whole life. You're like 20-year-old kid. You're like, I'm building this, and then in the future, I'll build another one, and I'll come back. You know what I mean? You do all this. Yeah. You do all this, and it doesn't work.
I missed a step back on page 3.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it's like, and you're talking like 10,000 year project probably.
Yeah.
This is generational stuff, and by the time you get the other end built, did you remember why you're building it in the first place? Stuff like that. I mean, I guess you could say that if you have some sort of way of transferring it, maybe you accidentally travel through the wormhole the first time, but you've still got to connect the two ends somehow to make it be a purposeful, I want to travel to this destination.
Right.
Thing.
Aaron, so that story, where does that come from? Because that sounds like the beginning of the movie Stargate.
It does,
and that's basically where it came from. I mean, this British Army colonel, Reginald Blumenthal, found this thing during an expedition in Sudan in 1928. So this is old, relatively speaking, right? I mean, it was not even 100 years ago, but it's an old version, the oldest version that I was able to find of where did Stargates come from, where did portals come from. Yes, they'd always kind of been sci-fi kind of stuff, whatever. But this story of his, the things that didn't necessarily add up for me in this one was 1928. He comes back and he's like, there's tunnels. And people wrote it off as, well, the tunnels in the Great Pyramid had been discovered well before that.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily until later that it was discovered that he wasn't talking about those tunnels. He was talking about the tunnels under 700-800 feet under the pyramids, which then spurs on the conversation, well, which came first? Was it the pyramids and then they built the tunnel system, or was it the tunnel system and then they built the pyramids and connected them all via those things? So it's very similar to that, and that's probably where they got it from.
It's where the writers of Stargate were like, we're gonna build the entire theory off of the story off of this,
right?
This
because
conspiracy.
He wrote all of this in his diary while he was there, and then when he got back. And the thing that's kind of mind blowing to me is like these witnesses or whatever. I could be like, Floyd, okay, it's what we're gonna say, right?
Right.
That's the thing. I'm like, how much money did each person have to bargain with?
But he's got witnesses. It wasn't like I just wander out into the desert and I come back with this great story.
Right. Yeah, and anytime you get 2 or more people to try to corroborate something, usually
they
something falls
had
apart.
3 different explorations out there.
Yeah.
And the American Army guy went with him and was like, dude, what is going on here?
And what do they have to benefit if it's all BS, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're going to earn
They
any
get
money
a free
off of it.
trip to the Sudan. That's awesome. That's everybody's dream. But I mean,
honestly, there was enough going on in their lives to keep it exciting.
well, and
It's
this
not
is,
like
of
they're
course,
just bored.
I mean, from 1928 into the 1960s, when the CIA got involved. So I mean, it's a span of quite some time that is keeping their interest enough to keep going back. Now, again, when they say, "Well, we never rediscovered where the Stargate was," I'm like, "Yes, you did.
We
Yes, you
forgot where it was
did.
buried.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
couldn't find. Oh,
There
yeah,
was
you
nothing there.
could. Right.
And someone must have came and picked it up, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh
Not
well.
there.
Oh well.
You know, I think about things on the quantum level.
Mm-hmm.
Quantum entanglement is something that we're only really starting to play with.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we've known about for a while, but we are finally starting to kind of apply it to certain things. If somehow we could apply quantum entanglement to a gateway, distance means nothing.
Yeah.
But again, on your point, Steve, someone's got to go first and build the gate on the other side.
Right.
How do I choose the destination?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get there? And then how the hell are we getting home?
The 7 Stargates of hell.
That's how we're doing it.
Hell yeah, right in Pennsylvania.
I'm thinking Geneva, Switzerland.
No, Pennsylvania.
It'd be
CERN's already there. That might be the first gate.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot easier for Valve to make a Portal 3 video game. We just all just play that. And,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yes.
You know, when it comes to portals and things like that, it's a great fantasy, man. And if we could somehow apply that, think of all the people who would lose their job.
Yeah.
Because they would. You know, if you could just get up, think about how lazy we'd become. There'd be no commute to work.
Yeah.
It's imagine walking up to a closet, punching in a number, opening it, and there's wherever you want to go in the world, and you just walk through. And as long as there was another closet on that
They're
other
gonna
side,
put TSA on it.
you could just somebody's standing there. Shoes too. That's what I said. Shoes too. You know.
Well, getting there is half the fun. That would just completely go away.
Well, see that. Yeah, the
No more
journey would
24-hour
be gone.
flights to Thailand. You just
Or those random stops, like me and you. We go on
yeah,
our little
I love
road
'em.
trip.
Yeah,
First
the
off,
diversions, yeah.
But see, like
him and I are in so much pain because my car is so small,
Oh.
and long drives are not it with that baby.
there'd
but,
be no stopping at the giant ball of twine.
But that's
No.
the thing. Thank you. Have
See?
you been to the giant
Oh,
ball
yeah.
of twine?
Duh.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
things
It's
like
amazing.
that would become the vacation.
Yeah.
You would travel just to travel. And let's all admit, no one would fly. Like,
Oh no.
not, there'd be no outside of like recreationally just jumping in a plane and flying it yourself. No one's going to be like, I'll be your passenger. No.
Unless there were things like in Spaceballs where you could have your head gun on backwards when you arrive. I mean, if there was like a certain percentage chance that could happen, you might weigh your options and say, well, maybe it's not worth the risk.
That's what I
Yeah.
loved about The Fly. Okay. The Fly, the movie, is that he's trying to invent a teleporter.
Mm-hmm.
And he does.
And then
He
the
gets
flies
it
in
done.
it, right?
But the issue is
Yeah.
a fly flew in with him. So when he broke down his molecular makeup, sent it through the wire, and the computer rebuilt him, he had fly DNA.
Do you think that would only happen with like biological stuff, or do you think like you wear clothes through the portal and then all of a sudden your
Yeah.
clothes are attached to you?
I think molecules is molecules,
Well,
right?
see,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So you'd have to be completely naked.
Saw what happens with was it the Philadelphia experiment?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Where they actually
fused to the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And they say that Project Looking Glass, the device, was part of the Philadelphia.
Oh yeah,
project.
I think I remember that.
And that it didn't do what they thought it was going to do, and so they took it off.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, let's just bury this and we'll hide this device. And then somebody else came in later and said, well, we can use it to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the thing is you can fly or you can travel through portals, but you got to be naked to go through the portal.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Hey, Dad.
We're here for
I
my
came
visit.
for a
visit. Oh, I walked in around the portal room. I'm sorry.
yep. Accidentally took
Just
the
have
wrong
like a
turn.
room with robes hanging up, and that's the whole.
You know what? Okay, that's a good solution,
That's
though.
what I'm telling you.
Pretty
Yeah.
good solution.
He's a thinker.
Yeah.
He's
Problem
a thinker.
solver.
Well, I'm telling you, that T-shirt Emporium at Hell's Gate, shot glasses,
Yes.
gates. My bad.
Yes, multiple gift shops.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
a gift shop for each gate. You
Oh
want.
my
Each gate
gosh.
gets a
How
little more
amazing would
intense.
that be? I'd buy everything.
But see, it's
Buy
hell.
everything.
So, like, the person manning the counter has got to be a little more frustrating to
Yes.
deal with each level. And then finally,
Yes.
you get to the last one, and it's just like, a 19-year-old girl on her cell phone. And she like looks
just
up
looks
at you.
up and
That's
goes,
the thing.
we only take Bitcoin.
oh.
That's why no one's made it that far.
That's why nobody has gone through that 7th gate.
Yep.
Unless you are Karen's 7th level. She's wringing her hand.
Yep.
Give me that. I'm going to go to the 7th level t-shirt. Yeah.
I need to speak to your 7th manager, please.
That's right. The devil comes in picking his teeth. What's up? She texted me from the back. All right. So portals are, it's a theory, and it's just like everything else that we've talked about. I don't think that they exist. I do think I have no evidence as to whether or not wormholes exist, but the theory's pretty sound, and there's not much that old Einstein's been wrong about yet. So maybe they're out there. Maybe they pop into existence and pop out all the time. And
Well, and that's the thing. What if you walk through it one day and nothing happens?
yeah.
But you come back on this solar equinox of this thing and everything's aligned and boop,
Yeah.
there you go.
And maybe that's maybe it's one of those things. Maybe they're a naturally occurring event that's just kind of cool and weird, but they're here and gone. Maybe one day we'll even be able to detect them like we were with gamma ray bursts, where we were like, oh, well, it's a good thing those are rare. And then we turned it up and we were like, they're not rare. They're not rare. That's terrifying. But who knows? And even though they were real, let's say that they were, how the hell would we ever use them? Is there like a mask, kind of like in Star Trek Deep Space Nine? Is it like, do I just fly in and there's like an in-between that I have to go through to get to the other hole?
Mm-hmm.
Is that other hole going to be in the same place? How is that stabilized and how is that decided? Who knows? Could be magnetic shifts, could be binary stars, could be gravity for some reason.
Could be total chaos.
Could be absolute chaos. They could just pop in and out randomly. God. And then all of a sudden, lost in space. All right, you've been watching Jackalopes Explore. Pigs in space.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow.